Dissidents are often perplexed as to why self-proclaimed revolutionaries, such as those who support Antifa and radical feminism, invariably side with big business, big pharma, finance, and generally policies which government are in support of. I came across a passage of text which went a long way towards explaining why this is, whilst rereading John Lamb Lash's seminal work Not in His Image recently. Lash is known predominantly as a Gnostic scholar, so his observation was intended mainly to relate the oppressive history of Abrahamic religion, but it has a much wider application. I'd like to read this segment to you from the chapter titled The Divine Scapegoat. The lethal insanity of the Victim-Perpetrator Bond is staggering. The complicity of the victims and perpetrators is a gruesome pact. But there is still a deeper dimension to this horror. The two parties are not merely complicit in their beliefs, they are intricately and intimately codependent in their actions. Victims and perpetrators need each other desperately and use each other both viciously and vicariously to keep their bond intact. I find this to be a profound observation. That perpetrators and their victims are bound to the same contract, so to speak. They depend upon the same narrative, with the only difference being their precise relationship to that narrative. Lash goes on to say, "This is not true of first-time out-of-the-blue victims, of course, but of the addicted kind, those who come back for more, glorifying the victim role and blindly follow the same narrative as the perpetrators. Convinced that it puts them on higher moral ground than those who harm them, or believing they are called to suffer for the sake of others. We've all known people who seem addicted to drama, who return to the same miserable situation or field of conflict time and time again. The addicted kind who glorify in the victim role. This is how we should view those self-proclaimed anti-establishment revolutionaries who cannot help but to vocally propagate the values of the system they claim to despise. They relish in the drama of critiquing the system, but outside of that immediate display of conflict, they are obligated to promote the same values. This is because they are committed to the same overall narrative, where only the specific relationship to it differs." Having meditated on Lash's observation, I'm able to expand upon it with some additional thoughts. In occult circles, it is known that statements of intent are stripped of their negative slant. For example, the phrase, "I don't like social distancing" becomes, "I like social distancing," and "no more government corruption" becomes, "more government corruption." This is because whichever way we make those statements, we are affirming our belief in social distancing and government corruption. The negative component of the sentence does nothing except to affirm our opinion of that thing which we believe in, our relationship to it. But regardless of what we express about it, it exists in our mind. It wouldn't matter if I told you not to think of a pink elephant. There it is. So a pseudo-liberal movement screaming slogans such as "no more patriarchy" is actually perpetuating the patriarchal problem it seeks to solve. This is the essence of the Victim-Perpetrator Bond. Whilst all of this gives us an insight into the insanity of pseudo-liberal progressive politics, it actually demands far more of us than it does of our opponents, and poses some difficult questions. If statements of opposition are actually declarations of support, why are we still making them? And, by extension, are we not empowering something by protesting against it? Today we live under obvious forms of tyranny: covidius tyrannus, ethnic subjugation and debt slavery. As difficult as it might be, we must try not to build an identity which is based upon our opposition to these things. To do so would be to embed ourselves into a particular victim-perpetrator bond, which will not only become increasingly difficult to escape, but could become intergenerational. This is at the root of the British working class's long-standing support for the Labour Party, which has been extraordinarily difficult to break. Support for Labour is largely built on opposition to the Conservative Party, and that pride in being anti-Tory has been handed down from father to son. Worse still, entire cultural norms such as electoral democracy maintain their hold on society because of the Victim-Perpetrator Bond. We uphold the system that oppresses us by participating in it. Attending anti-lockdown protests can serve to strengthen social bonds, but those social bonds are based on opposition to a narrative, and are thus the result of a victim-perpetrator bond. Instead, we must try to pursue a less reactionary narrative, where we take stock of social problems and declare our alternative vision in positive terms. That we build bonds with others based on that shared positive vision, paying as little heed as possible to the previous system of control. We must reject the current paradigm in favour of a new one, where we are neither victim nor perpetrator, but rather us in our natural form. Natural order is the immovable layer of reality we must return to, and we already know how to work with it through our myriad native traditions. As a final comment, we can also see why our pre-Christian ancestors cherished glory and strength rather than making a virtue of weakness and submission. They knew that the victimhood mindset was cancerous to the well-being of their culture. Thank you for watching.